Welcome back to Community Matters here on AM 1290. I'm Ed Giron. Along with me is Maria Long, and our in-studio guest is Dr. Steve Elson, the CEO of Casa Pacifica.
Steve, when we first met, I found a kindred spirit in you, and that you've had a very unusual childhood, which I think has driven you to this work. Can you tell us about it in 3 minutes?
Sure. I spent time in a children's home in Arkansas from about the 4th grade through high school. And the reason that I was in the children's home was because my parents were missionaries in Mexico, actually. And prior to the 4th grade, I was in a little Indian village with my 2 brothers in a language group called the Sierra Popolucas. And my parents were involved in Bible translation, but the tradition in those days was to leave your kids in a children's home and in the U.S. so they could be educated in the United States. At the time, my older brother was about a 4th grader, and when he was aspiring to a mule in a cornfield, that's what he wanted when he grew up, my folks thought, wow, we better get these boys back to the U.S. of A. But they continued their work. And we were in a children's home went to public school, but much like being in a group home nowadays, so we were in out-of-home placement, which would be the term of art that's used now. Although that children's home would not have met California licensing standards or staffing requirements. There were 21 kids at one point with 2 adults, so that's quite a group of children ranging in age from about 1st grade through high school. We went to public high school, but we lived in a children's home. So I realized a number of years ago that the experiences that I had as a child were not dissimilar from kids that we were serving. And so for some strange reason, I had never really made the connection on sort of an emotional level or an experiential level. And I had always thought my experience was very different, but came to realize that there were a lot of things that we had in common. And I find it ironic that I wound up in this business. I never thought I would. But
I don't think it's ironic at all, and I think the children of Ventura and Santa Barbara counties are really lucky.
Casa Pacifica provides hope and help for abused, neglected, and at-risk children and for their families, serving over 3,500 children and their families in all programs combined, and admitting 1 child into a program every 3 hours. We'll see you next week on Community Matters. Welcome back to Community Matters, the show that talks about how nonprofits benefit our local community and beyond. I'm Ed Giron with Maria Long and our in-studio guest, Dr. Steve Elson, the CEO of Casa Pacifica.
And Steve, one of the important aspects of after people have the grace to be able to see you and be treated by you, they emancipate out of the system at age 18. What do you provide for those young adults?
We are developing a program, actually have developed a program on that's headquartered on campus for kids that we call alumni. They're kids who've received services, I shouldn't call them kids, young adults who are struggling, and we give them an 800 number when they leave and find that maybe even years later they call and say we need some help. We're working right now with about 50 youth who are young people who have what we call aged out. They're now adults legally, and I actually started calling them alumni and landed that program with our development folks because I said, in universities and schools, the alumni are often a big donor base, so that's what we're looking for here.
Sure.
But it turned out, of course, that that they're not. They have extreme needs, and we're in a position to be able to continue to help them. So we're delighted to be able to do that. We've developed a range of services, all with private money, and one of which is gaining some property that was immediately adjacent to our campus. So we were able to add 2.5 acres to our already existing about 23 acres. And on that property were 3 buildings, 2 of which have been converted into homes for emancipated youth. So youth who are over 18. We have a house mom in one of the homes, and then the other one is just a 2-bedroom. And the 3rd building is a resource center with computers and some access to some vocational training, that sort of thing.
The thing that actually I had the opportunity to visit them, and they're called Stepping Stone House, and they were these really old buildings, weren't they? And they're now transformed into these beautiful cottages with all, state-of-the-art equipment. I understand they have cooking classes and they have life skill classes, and they're really lovely places for these kids and young adults to learn how to live a pretty, hopefully, normal life. Not that their life will ever be normal, because it started off pretty tragically, but they're really amazing when you go and look at them. And the kids are happy to be there, and their sense of pride when you walk in. And there's really been a lot of thought that's been put into these, and I know that it was all taken care of by donations.
By private money, yeah.
You bought the property then?
Well, we leased it from the county.
But you renovated it.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we renovated it. It was a real huge effort. We had community groups come in and do a lot of the landscaping and clearing of the land, and doing a lot of the work in the houses to get them ready to move in. Kids have been in the houses since June, so it's been about 6 months, a little bit more. And it's going great. It's just a terrific resource. Housing is one of the big needs for transition-age foster youth. Housing, education. So the requirement for being there is that they are attending school, attending college or vocational school, and that they have a job. So they can stay about 18 months. We also have a number of apartments in the community that we're using, so they can graduate into those apartments, be a little more independent, also have some supports. And then they can stay there for about 2 years, and then they're out. So that's the program.
I think that's one of the biggest gaps is that, here as a state, at 18 years old, you're considered a legal adult, and then you're out on their own. And I don't know any 18-year-old that's really equipped to handle all the pressures of real life.
That is an issue nationally. The feds passed a piece of legislation in Congress to extend the age of foster youth up to 21, foster care up to 21. California adopted that a couple of years ago. So a youth graduating now can volunteer to stay as a foster youth, continue to get services, and to get some help with the needs that they have. So
I know you're not the foster care program, but isn't it true that we don't have enough homes in Santa Barbara County to fill all of those needs, and those children are placed in other counties, or in some cases not at all?
Yes, that is true. There is a real shortage of foster homes in both counties.
When I was working with Casa, I know that when we had a particularly significant case that would come our way, we would always refer to Casa Pacifica, and they would take care of children that had especially high needs. And then many times our children, talking about Santa Barbara County, because of the lack of foster care, get shipped to San Bernardino County. They get shipped to Bakersfield and Fresno. A lot of the times where their main support is here, and that makes it difficult and even harder.
Change?
I don't know that it is. I don't know what the solution is. I know that what Steve is doing is certainly helping, and then also with the fact that in Ventura County you've got apartments for the transitional age
and
kids.
we think that's a great model. It's no real capital outlay. It's just having an agreement with a landlord on how this is going to work and who's going to pay the bills and who's going to cover the costs if there's damage and so on. And we've been able to work that out. We're very interested in doing something like that here in Santa Barbara and are moving in that direction. We see a real need for foster youth.
Yeah.
When we talk about kids, I see the picture of Archie here, so I've got to talk about the dog. We think about kids and dogs. I think about me and dogs, and I think, what a great thing to have around, a compassionate friend. How is Archie the dog gaining so much notoriety, and why? He's in L.A. Times, San Francisco Gate, Seattle Times, etc.
Archie actually was given to us, donated to us by one of our board members who believed that she was volunteering in the preschool and she thought these kids need a dog. And so she and our development director researched the what would be the best dog and wound up choosing a Newfoundland. And Archie came in 2006. He was guaranteed not to have any hip problems, but it turns out he's had a lot of knee problems.
Okay.
So the first sort of media attention that he got was when he had surgery on a knee. We actually had Channel 9 there doing a live remote from the operating room in Ventura. So it caught the public's attention, and Archie became, the LA Times picked it up. It got on AP, went worldwide, and Archie became a famous therapy dog. So now he's got his own website. And
wow. And he's got companions.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, and his full name is just great. What's his full name?
Archibald Razmataz.
And who are Archie's new pals?
His new pals are two other Newfies, two puppies. One is Baker and the other is Tess, and they're actually living in the stepping stone houses. So they come over to campus every day and disrupt our work there. So you walk into offices now and the waste baskets are up on a desk. So they're always digging for stuff.
That's great.
But they're wonderful dogs, and the Archie and Baker and Tess all three have this real sort of intuitive understanding of kids. And if you'll see Archie and there'll be a little toddler and he'll just flop to the ground, sort of spread eagle, and let the toddler just crawl all over.
Great. They are. They have
dogs.
such a great temperament.
Yeah.
They're so big and fluffy and cuddly. But next time you're here, we gotta bring Tess or Baker in here. Well, if Archie's too much of a celebrity to come all this way, we'll bring
We'll have to contact his agent.
Yes, exactly.
She's a great one.
Well, we were talking before about volunteer support. I didn't quite understand where volunteers could get involved, but I see something here called Children's Wish Lists and Join the Kids Club. Is that something? How does the community get involved in that, and what can they do?
Well, certainly the wish list was a big push over the holidays. We had ornaments on, by ornaments I mean little paper doves hung on trees, Christmas trees throughout both counties. They had the name of a child, age of a child, and what they would want. And so people in the community could pluck one off and go buy a gift and bring it to campus or to our Santa Barbara offices. Kids Club is actually an annual giving club, membership club, $1,500 a year, gets you in the Kids Club. And we ask for an annual donation of that amount or larger every year to continue that membership. We have events that we put on every year. Our big wine and food festival last year, we had over 4,000 people coming. It's held at Channel Islands University in Camarillo, not too far from our campus. And it's a wonderful event. It's been voted by Ventura County folks as the best event of the year each year for the last 4 years.
Wow.
So,
Yeah,
it's a
pretty
terrific
spectacular.
event. We also have the Angels Ball upcoming.
February
it's a
23rd?
black tie affair, February 23rd at Sherwood Country Club
In Thousand Oaks.
in Thousand Oaks.
Lovely. That sounds great. And speaking of awards, I should mention before we go to our next break that Casa Pacifica won the prestigious Web Award. Web Marketing Association gave Casa Pacifica Best Nonprofit Website Award, and also the organization is recipient of another prestigious award, which is the Program of the Year, Exemplary Program of the Year Award at the Annual Conference of California Mental Health Advocates for Children and Youth. We'll be right back here on Community Matters on AM 1290. Welcome back to Community Matters here on AM 1290. Also live streaming on the web at newspress.com, and click on the AM 1290 radio icon. I'm Ed Giron with Maria Long, and we are with Dr. Steve Elson, the CEO of Casa Pacifica Centers for Children and Families, and we were talking about his speaking to his colleague in Pasadena, and their programs have taken a little bit of a different track, but you've still maintained a core residential treatment center and shelter care center, but you've also reached out into the community and contracted for services in the community. What kind of services are those that you have found are best served by existing agencies in the area?
We are providing three different programs. Actually, we have a couple more, but they're much smaller. The three big programs that we provide in the community I mentioned earlier are Wraparound, which is a team of our folks, along with gathering what we call natural supports in the community to work with a family and a child to try to keep them together. So, and it's whatever it takes is the motto. So it could be physical needs, housing, employment, as well as mental health services and educational services. We also do the very targeted therapeutic behavioral services, which is the in-home behavioral interventions that we provide. And when I say very intensive, I mean by that we would have a staff member who might be in the home with a child as much as 15 to 20 hours a week. So it's a lot of focus on the behaviors developing.
Is this a psychologist, a therapist?
It would be a paraprofessional, actually, somebody who's been trained to provide therapeutic behavioral interventions. We also have, it could be a licensed person. It's all supervised by our licensed staff. Our supervisors do go into the home with a behavior therapist.
Do you provide the training for the paraprofessionals?
Yeah, we do. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then the highest volume program is our mobile crisis response team. We are the sort of 911 first responder team for psychiatric emergencies for children up to the age of 21 in both counties.
How does that work?
There's an 800 number, a call-in number. We get calls from schools, from law enforcement, from parents.
Okay, so it can be an individual as well as an entity.
Yes, that is the one program we have that the general public could access.
And generally speaking, what kind of urgent situations do you find? Suicide?
Yes, typically threats of self-harm. Sometimes threats of harm to others, but they're threats or actions that are being taken very seriously.
No one is immune from the tragedies of 2012, and I won't go into the details because we all know them, but when you get calls from somebody that is threatening to do harm to themselves or others, how is it possible to assess the materiality and get a response, and also make sure that that's followed up so that it doesn't escalate?
We have some pretty standard assessment interventions that we do. These calls come on by phone, so in some cases we're able to deal with the situation over the telephone. But when the decision is made that we need to go out, we dispatch one of our CERT, or safety workers. CERT is the name in Ventura County. It's the Children's Intensive Response Team. Here in Santa Barbara County, it's called safety, which stands for
long acronym.
Yeah, long acronym. Anyway, that's how it's known. And we can go into a school and work with a girl who's locked herself in the bathroom with some sort of cutting object, and school has said we need help, or a kid's on the roof at school, or they're on a bridge here in Santa Barbara County, or we've dealt with all of those kinds of situations. And actually, just following Sandy Hook tragedy, the volume of calls that we got, especially in Ventura County, just soared. And we did have some situations where school officials felt concerned and wanted us to come in and do an assessment. Is it because
kids started acting out more? Is it because a school thought nothing of this before but realized it might be a problem?
Both.
Okay. And is there a way, other than a tragedy like this, to educate teachers and parents about behaviors that may not need to get to the emergent situation?
We do. We do a lot of community outreach and conversations with law enforcement at their shift meetings, making them aware of our services. We also go to schools, talk with faculty and administration.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Yellow Ribbon campaign around the country. I think Ventura has adopted it, which is really suicide prevention. So we're involved in these kinds of efforts.
What's the other outreach or community-based program that you have more or less collaborated with?
We have one on campus called PCIT, Parent-Child
Interactive Therapy.
Parent-Child Interactive Therapy, that's right.
That, yeah.
Yes. So we have actually some equipment on campus, and we work with families with children 2 to 7 years old who are having some difficulties, and teach parents basically how to manage their child, improve their relationship with their child, and learn some skills on. And
you're this is all throughout Ventura and Santa Barbara County.
Actually, in PCIT, it's only in Ventura. CALM has the PCIT program here in Santa Barbara County.
And you collaborate with them in terms of that in this particular county. We've got a lot more questions for you, and that's a good thing to know, because there's nothing worse than dead air on radio, and I know we're not going to have any in this particular episode. We are Community Matters, if you're just tuning in, and we're talking with Steve Elson, Dr. Steve Elson, who is the CEO of Casa Pacifica Centers for Children and Families. I'm Ed Giron with Maria Long. We'll be back in just about 2 more minutes with a lot more information about this particular organization. Welcome back to Community Matters here on AM 1290. I'm Ed Giron with Maria Long, and weekly we talk to various nonprofits in our local community here of Santa Barbara, and those nonprofits influence not only this county but far beyond in their programs and missions. In this episode, we're very fortunate to have with us Dr. Steve Elson, PhD, CEO, Casa Pacifica Centers for Children and Families, and we've been on a sort of a virtual tour of some of the services rendered by the organization, talking about the residential treatment and the emergency shelter care. That's housed in a physical building, and you also have education. You teach school there, but also to people that come in from outside of the facility. So how many people do you school in a given year? And is this their regular school curriculum as opposed to it's like homeschooling, if you will, right? Only it's not exactly a home.
No, it's actually a like a school.
It's totally like a school.
It's,
okay.
We have 7 classrooms. We have a school building. We are certified by the State Department of Education, and we are also WASC accredited. That's the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. So we provide a state approved curriculum.
Is that well known that you provide that? I didn't know you provided that.
No, probably not well known. I think it is among the special ed departments in the area.
How do students get selected from outside to come into that program?
They're referred by education school districts through an IEP, an individual education plan. So every youngster who's there has gone through some assessment. The school has determined that they need a different setting, a more enclosed setting. Our classrooms are very small. We have maybe 8 kids in a classroom with a teacher and an aide. We have behavior specialists available.
And for how long can you continue to educate a particular individual?
As long as the IEP team, the individual education plan team, and that usually includes a parents, the school personnel, the school psychologist, we can educate them as long as they determine that that's where the child can benefit best from their educational experience.
You also get involved in health services, and I'm not sure exactly what that means. Is it mental health, or is it physical as well as mental?
It's both. On campus, it's both. We have a primary care clinic on campus with a pediatrician, nurse, a couple nurse practitioners, and about 7 nurses. And they serve our day students and the kids who are placed on campus primarily. We're now beginning to serve more of what we're calling our alumni, kids who've been in our program and have aged out, quote, of the system. And
what is that age, 18?
18, yep. So, and they come back to us with their own children. So that becomes sort of a medical home for folks who've turned adults and now have their own health needs and are taking care of their own.
Let's talk about the behavioral health needs, because that's a large focus of your program. The therapeutic and behavioral supportive services, how are these generated? Are these in-house as well as, quote-unquote, farmed out to other community organizations?
No, they're all in-house.
All in-house.
We, our staff, one of the programs that we provide, although this technology is used in pretty much every program, applied behavior analysis. One of the programs that we provide is specifically geared to behaviors that are putting a child in jeopardy of being removed from home. So pretty extreme behaviors. And the referrals come from county mental health in both counties. So ADMHS here in Santa Barbara County and VCBH in Ventura County. So the referrals come through behavioral health, and it's viewed as an ancillary service. So the child's already getting mental health services through the county typically, and we're asked to come in and provide some additional intensive services in the home.
What's the outcome that's desired when you get those referrals?
Would be to change those behaviors, teach them new skills, teach a child new skills, parents or caretakers new skills as well, so that those behaviors can be managed. And
are these usually aggressive behaviors?
Typically, yeah. Often aggressive behaviors.
The end goal, from my understanding, is always to keep families together.
Yes.
And that's why these 60 employees in carpentry and also in Ventura going into the home and really seeing hands-on what all the little innuendos are and what could best serve that family.
So I know they've got you've got 60 employees, but
in Santa Barbara.
In Santa Barbara. How do you involve yourselves in parent-child interaction so that the parent and the child are on the same wavelength, if you will, with what the goal of the program is. Do you do that in the home?
Yes, or school, or in community facilities like a Boys and Girls Club, so we might be helping a boys and or a child actually be able to stay in a community-based program where there might be in jeopardy of being expelled because of their behavior.
And do you have a way of following up after the main program is done to just do some ongoing checking in?
You know, we do in all of our programs. Yes, we are available. That becomes difficult because there's no real funding for aftercare. But we believe that once a Casa Pacifica kid, always a Casa Pacifica kid, and we continue to provide service.
Maria mentioned 60 employees, and so that sort of leads to the question of where are they, where are they utilized, and what kind of a budget do you have to support this?
We actually have 400 employees, or we're approaching 400. 60 of them are in offices here in Santa Barbara County. They're either in Santa Maria, which is our largest office, or in Santa Barbara. And our budget is about $26 million a year right now.
The 400 employees, are many of these clinical or teaching staff?
Yes.
And so how does it break down as between, let's say, the therapeutic component and the administrative accounting component?
Probably about our administrative staff is, that's a good question. We probably have about 25 or so.
So it's heavily weighted to the treatment and the education.
Yes.
And the $26 million, how is it funded?
Mostly through contracts with county agencies. So we contract with mental health departments, contract with schools, contract with social services or child welfare. 10% of our budget, that's almost $3 million, we raise privately. We need private money to fill the gap.
Do the 400 employees have to have certain special skills, or do you seek volunteer help for any purposes?
We do have volunteers. They're primarily on our campus. We use volunteers. We work with other agencies. We work with Casa, court-appointed special advocates in both counties. They're a terrific group. Very much appreciate what they do. We work with CALM, with FSA, other agencies here.
Tell me again the organization you came out of before you joined in 1994.
It was an agency called Hathaway Sycamores in Pasadena.
And it rendered some similar services.
Yes.
So have you followed up with them? What kind of programs do they offer now?
You know, we're actually very similar. The director who took over from me, I think, took it in a little bit different direction, but they've really de-emphasized their residential program, which was kind of the major program when I was there, and have done a lot more community-based services, but we've done the same.
We'll talk more about those community-based services while keeping the core alive as well, and how all of you in this field get to communicate and brainstorm. I guess you do communicate with that colleague. I wonder with whom else we get new and fresh ideas. But we'll find that out when we come back here on AM 1290's Community Matters. This is Community Matters. This is the show that talks about how nonprofits benefit our local community and far beyond. Ed Giron here with Maria Long, and we do this every week with various nonprofits. And I think we've got only maybe, 1,000, 1,500 more to go before we've covered each one, unless a new one opens, of course.
No end of great material.
No end of great material. And that is hopefully the case today with a very interesting program that we're going to be talking about in depth with Dr. Steve Elson, PhD, CEO of Casa Pacifica Centers for Children and Families. And by the way, if you want to call in and talk to us, we air live between 10 and 11 on Monday mornings, and then we come back at you on Monday nights at 8 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. And we're also on the web, newspress.com. Click on the AM 1290 radio icon, and voila. Well, let's go back to a spring afternoon in March of 1994 when you were hired, Steve, with Casa Pacifica, but it was still under construction. So how could they hire somebody when this is just under construction? And how in the world did somebody induce you to come aboard?
I was involved with Casa Pacifica. I was working in L.A. in the Pasadena area at an agency that's similar, and was invited about a year earlier to consult with the steering committee to help on both programming and financing for this new program that was up and coming. And in December of '92, then I was asked to apply, and I said, no, I'm happy where I am. And it was the director of Ventura County Mental Health at the time who'd asked me that. He was in charge of the steering committee, and he said, you can always say no. So I said, well, you're right. I can always say no. But I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't. So in March, actually, we didn't open for another 4 or 5 months. And while the campus was under construction, I was applying for various licenses so we could operate from a number of different state agencies, given the program design that we'd come up with.
So when you took on this task, this challenge, what was the so-called mission statement? What was the vision that you intended this organization would achieve?
The original vision was that Casa Pacifica would become a sort of a one-stop shop for kids, abused, neglected kids, removed from home by law enforcement or child protective services. And the idea was that it would replace the then existing system of using foster homes. The downside to using foster homes was that kids could come in the middle of the night without a medical screen, without any sort of effort to take a look at what their needs might be, and if they had any sort of contagious disease, lice or whatever, they could infect the foster family. It was also very difficult to get evaluations. The foster parents typically wanted that placement to be anonymous, didn't want visitation to happen there from the offending parents, which the court would authorize. They didn't want to be overrun with specialists who were coming in to do an evaluation. So the idea was have everything there available for a child who's removed from home.
So let's look at 2012, 2013, which we're in now, and tell us what Casa Pacifica looks like, how it's evolved, and some of the programs.
Well, the shelter continues, actually, and we're providing services for a few Santa Barbara kids who are placed. They're usually high-needs kids where they've been in the system and they have blown out of a placement for some reason, or it's a high-profile case. There's not resources available in Santa Barbara County, so they would use the shelter. Mostly Ventura County kids for the shelter. The other programs that we have are a residential treatment program. That's a longer-term program on our campus in Camarillo for youngsters who are in jeopardy of being placed out of the county or out of state because of their extreme needs, and so that program is designed to work with them.
What sort of needs would those be that someone would need to go out of state?
Primarily behavioral challenges. They're kids who have very poor skills at modulating or regulating emotion and behavior, and they act out and can be pretty violent. They're kids that schools feel like they can't manage, kids that other facilities may have problems with. We're sort of a last stop in that program for kids who...
How long is somebody in that program?
They're in typically about a year.
And then when they come out, what kind of a program have you structured so that when they come out they're way better than when they came in?
We do a lot of trauma care and treatment, so work on issues that really have interrupted or interfered with their ability to manage their emotions, and a lot of cognitive behavioral interventions, a lot of skill teaching, social skills, big focus on social skills.
Are any of these kids the victim of accidents or like head trauma or anything like that?
No.
It's just a mental health issue, basically.
A mental health issue, although we are using some of the latest science on brain trauma that is applicable to our kids.
You know, we can see now through, you probably are aware, through functional MRI, not just anatomical, but also the thinking brain. And that's going to turn into a great diagnostic and treatment tool over the years, I think. Where you can actually objectify it. If somebody questions, is there pathology? Is there some disability? You can say, look, here it is. Here's normal, and here are the variations. And I think that's wonderful because with things that have sometimes a little bit of a social stigma to them, if you can quantify it through the visual scan, may become different in the next 20 years in terms of acceptance of some of this. What about the emergency shelter care? Because I know there are other facilities here. I know there's the rescue mission. I know now we've got the warming centers that are on for interim purposes for the winter weather. How does the shelter function, and does it do all year long?
It does all year long, and it's really not a sort of a housing alternative for homeless folks. It's specifically geared to kids who are abused and neglected and removed from home for that reason.
So only kids?
Only kids.
How big is the need?
Well, it's pretty big. You know, the looking at the two counties, there are some real differences. Ventura County's child welfare population, foster care population, has increased by close to half in the last 3 years. It's just really exploded. Santa Barbara's, on the other hand, has been pretty stable. But kids come in and out. You know, the court, the dependency court, which oversees abused, neglected kids and kind of functions on behalf of society to make decisions about what's in their best interests. The courts are adjudicating youngsters, taking physical custody where they might be placed with us. And then as the family's able to get their act together, so to speak, then they're discharged and placed back home with typically with support services.
Steve, when we're talking numbers, how many children and families did Casa Pacifica serve last year?
We served about 4,000 kids. That's about 1 out of 100 in both counties combined. About 1,000 kids here in Santa Barbara County. You'd asked Ed earlier about what's happened to Casa Pacifica since we opened. And I started to mention the residential treatment program, but we moved our services off campus and into the community about 12 years ago. So we're providing, in fact, most of the kids we serve now from Santa Maria to Simi Valley, we provide services in the home and in the community. So,
what kind of locations in the community have you contracted with?
Homes.
Individual
homes.
So tell me how this varies from a foster care standpoint.
In foster care, actually a lot of the kids we serve are in foster care, but we're not providing the home. We're not the home. We're not the foster parents. We're providers of crisis intervention. We do in-home behavioral support services. We have a program called Wraparound, where it's fairly intensive. A whole team comes together and works with a specific child and family, and the intent is to keep them together.
When we talk about the emergency shelter care, though, that would be a pretty immediate need, and there may not be a home. So is there a facility that you have that is still in-house that you haven't released into the community?
That's how we began. We have a 25-acre campus.
That same one that was built in 1994?
Yes. That's actually the only place we have where kids live.
Now, how many kids can you accept at a
We have
given
our
time?
bed capacity in the two programs, emergency shelter and residential treatment, is 73. We also have a special education non-public school on campus where some of those 73 kids go, but we also have day students who come from all over Ventura County.
Oh, this is interesting. We've got a lot to cover because a plethora of questions arise, and if I start on any one of them right now, the computer will override me and we'll go into cyberspace. So we're going to just go ahead and break for a commercial. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.